Hello.
Hello and welcome back to the SWAN Pricing Show. My name is Filip Vucic. I'm a pricing mentor.
And I'm Philip Zolota, business mentor.
And today we want to talk about why it's not ideal to minimize risks. Now, initially, right, uh, most of our listeners here probably not casino owners, right? that's that's not really the market here. So people say, risks. What risks? Oh, you mean non-payment? Well, non-payment is one of the usual
Hmm.
ones, right? But it's definitely not the only one. There's currency fluctuations if you're not both, if you're not earning money that you're spending. So if you're earning euros or yen and spending in dollars, there's currency fluctuations. There's of course, oh, and I would lump in other economic hazards like inflation and stuff.
Hmm.
There's payment delays, sure, including non-payment, God forbid. Then all sorts of budget overruns and scope bloats and stuff that we talked about in the past. Some kinds of tech failures because you know maybe one of you gets blanked out without internet or electricity, or a technical failure of of a body that also counts. Or if you have small kids like me, sometimes you get disabled by other people's technical failures if they're in your care, right? Then all sorts of regulatory issues, because anybody who actually tried to own their own business is unfortunately familiar with those. Of course, clients can always change their mind about scope or this or that, or yes, but I know I wanted a cow, but I actually want a hamburger, which is basically the same, right? Um, all sorts of legal stuff, IP infringement, brand damage that you
Yep.
can deal to them or they can deal to you, client dissatisfaction of any kind for any reason, and of course, security breaches, natural disasters. So, feel casino-y yet?
Enough, feeling
Yeah.
enough,
Yeah.
casino-like.
So these are like broad categories of risk that anybody should be thinking about when entering a relationship with a client, which sounds scary, but it's usually enough to just be in good relations with your lawyer and they sort it out. Now you have to be then able to make the client sign it or all sorts of things, which is not something that we are talking about today. And of course, the main one is do you both you and the client know what delivery actually means? When does it stop, right? And who pays for any failures?
Hmm.
So let's say the client wants you to make a poster, and you do it, and the client says do this, do that, and you do what they said, and people don't like it. What then?
Hmm.
Right? Who
Yeah.
takes that risk? Now um, it may seem um, ideal to offload all of the risk on the client. But what we wanted to talk about here, and this I think is today's main Swan Duck difference, is
Hmm.
that in when you're selling expertise, it's actually not ideal to offload all of that risk.
Yeah.
Because in the duck world, in the commoditized service space, um, it's mostly the client that takes all of the risks. However, that means that the client also gets to profit on like 9/10 of the value. And one of the examples is employment, right? You don't get paid to think. You get employed as one of the people who knows project management or whatever, right? Um, and you do what you're told, and whatever happens, they need to pay you for your 40 hours. Was that productive? Not productive? Did it produce results? Did it produce damages? You just did what you told.
Yeah.
And so there's no responsibility, no risk on you, and you just get paid until the company goes out of business, or they decide to get rid of you on a whim, or they decide to get rid of you for a good reason or a bad reason, or just, you know. So you don't, you just take the risk of getting fired, which, don't get me wrong, is substantial, but that's the only one. And
Yeah.
everything else that I just mentioned, all of the currency fluctuations and natural disasters and brand damage, that is all carried by somebody else. However, you don't want to do that when you're a solopreneur. Not necessarily, because as we talked before, wages in general terms is the reason that you get wages is because you're working. You did something, right? And profits is what you get for risking. So if you give away all of the risk, you also give away all of the profits. And then you get to this absolutely horrendous situation where you have to rely on what we like to call meat markets in this show, which is, Fiverr, and all of the freelancing sites where you basically play a very, very badly rigged game of race to the bottom, because you are completely faceless and well, commoditized, right?
Yeah.
You're a commoditized automaton, and the only thing that people can see is, okay, how many jobs have you done before, which means that if you're just starting there, you're screwed. And what's the price? And
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah. And you're practically betting on the luck, potential luck, if
Yes.
that happens, that you'll be engaged with once more and again in more, maybe more lucrative position for you. But in majority of cases, yeah, that is not happening. You are being placed within the bracket and you are being perceived as a component of that bracket. You can hardly jump to another, in that respect, around a moment you can say even the higher pay grade and the realm, because you have been commoditized, as you mentioned. Exactly.
The funny thing is, you still take some of the risks that we mentioned.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
there's still currency fluctuation, there's still payment delays, as anybody who ever tried that knows. It's less, and the platform takes some of that risk and gets a hefty chunk of your potential profits for taking this. So one of the reasons not to work through platforms, or not to mainly work through platforms like that, is that you are then able to take some of that risk and then charge for that. So yes, charge for your work, but also charge for the risks that you're taking, right?
Exactly. And there is one thing I just wanted to add on here.
Yeah.
One thing a bunch of solopreneurs are leaving behind, they are forgetting about it. And that is the overall opportunity cost. So when you're asking a solopreneur, okay, what returns on the opportunity cost? Oh, I don't have none. Truly. Okay, you'll be working on specific project, or leaving a bunch of activities which can generate additional point of income, etc., simply behind because you dedicated you as the resource to do, for example, only this stuff, while at the same time you could get an amazing value, additional value, business-wise and opportunity-wise, doing something else. That is also something which
could you
should be
elaborate
taken
on
into.
opportunity costs? So non-economists listening to us may not be entirely sure what you mean by that.
Mm, we can take some very simple example. So if you are doing, let's say, a web development solution, you have your ideal client profile, you have some continuous inbound leads, some of those deals you are closing, and let's say you are taking 3 to 4 projects per month, and it is okay. But also, you want to expand the effort. You want to employ more people. You want to get better projects. But you also stuck with smaller projects, with smaller budgets, which doesn't allow you to move forward in terms of the sales activities, maybe start some level of additional networking, being in the circle with people who are able to give you and open the opportunity to work on more complex solutions and projects. And the opportunity cost and the breakdown can go in every possible segment on a daily basis. So as a solopreneur, you are one person which does it all. So the opportunity cost could be vast if you are being focused on the wrong things. It's not just you're sitting and waiting something to happen. You need to do the administration, you need to do the invoicing, project delivery, project management. If you're doing design, also the design, etc., 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 etc. And if you are being invested in all of those activities, you cannot move in the game of business further. And that is where lies the delegation. And in the end, if you have the adequate amount of budget for the respectable projects, you can, with that chunk and redundancy, actually move forward. Practically, you're buying out your time or giving a specific gap and amount of money which you can pour into additional resources, people, buying out the time for making sales, etc., etc., etc.
Yes. So in general, an opportunity cost is a risk, right?
Yeah.
It's
a big one.
a big one. It's a risk that you could have done something more productive if you haven't done this. And with employment, that's easy to explain, because let's say that you are an engineer and you could be working for 70K a year, right? But you take on a job in a local fruit shop and make 50.
Mm-hmm.
Effectively, you're losing 20, which is fine if that's your dream, if you always wanted to do that, if you can afford that. If so I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying you are not, so by doing the lower paid job, you are when you could have charged more for your time, you are effectively paying for having that job, right? Because it's exactly the same if you got 70 and paid 20 than if you get 50 and you could have gotten 70. So not getting 20 or getting 20 and then paying it is just basically the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's how economists think. It's weird, I know. However, it is their thing, so I don't think that's completely without merit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for each of the risks that we talked about today, I think it's prudent to sit down and list them out. And by the way, I listed all of the ones which are typical for any kind of venture, so not just soloprenneurship. And even then, each industry basically has their own has their own
shape of that same risk in some forms.
And additional ones.
Yeah.
Right. Additional ones that others don't have to think about. there's a professional liability for some cases and no in others, or different kinds of liabilities. I have a friend who's a doctor, and she basically has very a little liability when it comes to dealing with patients, because this is Europe. Uh, so as long as she is professional, there's nothing that can happen there. However, she also does science projects and she does teaching, and there the risks are different, right? So there's different parts to her career. Okay. So for each of these, it's actually good to sit down and think, okay, in this relationship that I'm building, or really this type of relationship, because you're not going to do this over and over again for
Yeah.
each client,
Yep.
right? Who is actually taking this risk? And if you are, and if nobody mentioned this so far, you are. And if you signed a contract without reading it, you definitely are, right? Then are you being compensated for this? Because a very good deal can quickly become a catastrophic one if risks are actually taken into consideration, right? So I don't know. So people often ask me, okay, so you can easily measure the effect of your services. People either have a higher price or not, right? Yes. Yes. And having a price, I don't mean having a price list, I mean actually selling at this price, right? Okay. So why don't you work for commission only? And I usually counter by saying, well, if I wanted to pay your price, and I said, listen, you're asking for $3,000, right? Okay, I can give you that $3,000 today, or I can give you 12, maybe sometime in the future. I don't know. What would you take? Mostly they say I will take the 3,000. What a coincidence. Me too. So if somebody was offering 3,000 now or 40 maybe later, and I trusted them, okay, so maybe, I don't know, maybe we're talking. But 1 to 4, I don't like those odds. I'm not playing.
Absolutely. And you have the important component there, the responsibility, accountability, and control. You can take more of the risk if you have more control over the process. For example, the sales perspective. A bunch of companies are looking for sales, BDRs, SDRs, etc., and looking for commission only. Fine, okay. So you are asking from professional to rely on your expertise, selling the bespoke solution like million others, and your service by default was being commoditized previously, and you also have the same approach, and they're relying on you and your capabilities of closing deals, getting into specific price bracket, making high ticket deals, etc., etc., etc. It can be productive, it can be counterproductive. The point is, to make long story short, if you can have control and as you go up the ladder control wise, then like the case you mentioned, 3 opposite of 12 or 3 opposite of 40, then we can discuss about opportunity, especially as we mentioned in the pre-show, the difference and the gain should be substantial. Then you have a playground to think about that type of the engagement.
Okay. I made I just remembered a case where I declined the risk, and it didn't. It turned out to be the wrong decision. Okay.
Okay.
So I had a client who's a Bitcoin consultant, who is one of those Bitcoin diehards that has all of their worldly assets converted into Bitcoin. And he wanted to pay me in Bitcoin. And I said, no, absolutely not. Thank you. And I would have had about 8 times the money if I said yes. But what I'm not saying I would do it differently next time. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that this is so he offered for me to take the risk. This would be very close to currency fluctuation, right? Quite literally here. And he wanted me to take that risk. And it would be more convenient for him because he doesn't have a habit of paying with fiat money if he doesn't have to. Fine. I said no, sorry. That it will be euros, right? Go and convert, do whatever you need to do and pay me. So he did. So I received euros, and in the meantime, the Bitcoin did a somersault. It could have happened the other way around. It's just so that's just an example of how risk creates profit, right? For the same work, I would have gotten 8 times the compensation if I took on the risk, and I didn't, so I didn't. It's fine. I can't say it wasn't that much money, so that the 8 times would be substantial. It would be really nice, but you know. But that's an example of modifying the risk within the same deal to make it, let's say, better or worse, right? This was potentially better and also potentially worse. I said no. It turned out not to be.
Yeah.
Although, who knows, right? But that's just another way of manipulating risk consciously so that you open up to black swans of goodness. No, I mean sometimes sometimes the downside is not really that down.
Yeah.
So in this case, if I didn't really need the money at the time, I probably should have said yes. And then if the money dwindled, well, okay. If the money went up, it would have been awesome. So lesson learned. But if I really needed that money, then the potential downside was way worse than the potential upside. So it was a correct decision to make. I just wanted to give an example of what it means, right?
A great one, especially. It's very important to take into consideration the context, as you stated. Yeah.
Yes. So your propensity to risk will change depending on how many mortgages you have, or how many kids you have, or how old you are, or how tired you feel. And it can go either way. You can say, okay, I'm nearing the end of my most effective age. I'm going to get more and more tired. I can right now afford to take more risk on in order in order to get more profits, in order to actually invest them in something, so I don't have to work as hard in 20 years, right? Or you can say, no, I need the money now. I cannot, right? So it can go either way. I'm just saying that pretending like things can never go wrong in a job or project only makes the damage bigger in the end.
Absolutely. Right? Absolutely.
So that's what risk means, right? And so I think our point today is that in the SWAN world, we have the potential. That's the big that's one difference. We have the potential to decide what to do with risk, to decide to present to a client, yes, you can pay me per hour, but then you're taking all of the risk. If this blows up, and this being IT, it's possible. If this blows up, you're going to end up paying for it. Or you can pay me upfront, full state, but then you tack on a significant amount for you taking the risk. But then you're taking the risk and the client is not. And it's a very interesting shift that happens. While they're paying you by the hour or by the day or whatever, they're very concerned over whether you're actually doing something.
Exactly.
What did you do today? How many hours, how many this, how many that, how many files, how many calls, is your mouse moving, right? All of these things. And once the risk shifts to you, they really don't care. They get involved over other things, because if you're not, you're going to be the one on the line. You are eating into your own profitability, and they suddenly it all shifts. Right? So anyway, as solopreneurs, we have the dubious honor of being more in control of our risks, which means that we have to be aware of the risks and actually weigh which of them we can take and which of them we don't want to, and know that this will affect the profitability, as it should, right? So sometimes the way to get much more profitable is just to take more risk. Because especially if you have corporate clients, risk is the bane of their existence, and butt covering is the supranational sport. And if the contractor is willing to take some of the risk, then they don't have to take it, and that is really, really good. And also it can help you compete. Because if somebody says, yes, I'm $100 an hour, but I will take the risk of any bugs that come up. So once we're done for a year, I will take care of any bugs in the software, because I wrote it from the ground up, and I know my style, and this will be the most efficient thing. And somebody else says, yes, I definitely won't be doing that, but you can pay me 80 an hour. Sure, there are blind spots all over the place, and sometimes people will go for the 80. Anybody who is actually going to be a good client will say, wait, that's not the same thing at all. Because I may end up paying a lot more to the 80 guy than to the 100 guy. Because if you're taking the risk of bugs, you have all of the incentives in the world to make it bug-free, because that's going to make it the most profitable, right? And the 80 an hour guy, he has the exact opposite incentive. If he makes a sloppy job, he will make more money. Right? He has absolutely no incentive. As I think Jonathan Stark says, anybody who charges by charges by the hour should probably never reinstall their Windows or change a computer. The slower the computer works, the better.
And it's true, because when you see the market and see how many old school rigged systems, ERP ones and similar, are there, and they're continuously upgrading something,
Yes.
I didn't see the change, on a bunch of them. That
It's
is
a
for some other topic. Yeah.
yes, yes, it's a meal ticket. And as a client, I mean, if you need that system, you need that system to work, right? Not to be on the phone with the vendor all the time counting additional hours.
Yeah.
So that 20% difference is very easily refundable from the system actually working through the next year. And I don't know that much about software development, but as far as I understand, most serious bugs will prop up in the first year. So after that, this is completely different.
Yeah. Yeah.
So by the time everything gets used and ironed out, it's fine, right? So when I say it can help you compete, it can help you change the overall deal as we talked about. So you're messing with the risk cost to the client, which means that the overall cost to the client can actually be more affordable, although your monetary price is high, right? And not having to deal with an outside vendor is also a convenience cost, and not being barraged by other departments saying, hey, that piece of software that you paid for is shit. That's an ego cost. So overall, you can get away with a significantly higher price because the overall deal is better, right? Right.
Exactly. Exactly.
Anything that you wanted to add?
Just one thing. Risk assessment is being made before entering the corporation for a reason. That's it.
Yes. Due diligence, as they call it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, there's nothing wrong with being employed. We talked about that.
Yeah.
However, it uh, for people who want to lead their own business and be in charge of their own free time and be in charge of what they study on and be in charge of their growth, it's a bad bargain. So trying to get as close to that bargain where you write off all of the risks, but basically get maybe 1/10 of the value back from the value that you produce, it's not ideal. So risk sounds bad, but this is why we get taught in the university to equate risk with profits. So when you say higher profits, you're also saying higher risks. Who takes on that risks? That's a topic for another conversation. But so it's about optimizing, not minimizing. I think that's the conclusion of this episode. Right. Philip, where can people find you?
People can find me on LinkedIn and also my mentorship page, philipzolota.com.
Awesome. People can find me on the various places under Fearless Pricing, and mostly on fearless-pricing.com. Thank you for listening. See you next time.
See ya.